Hi, welcome. Welcome to session number 4 of the Healthy Brain series. So 12 weeks to a healthier brain. And as I mentioned before, this is near and dear to my heart. I've seen both sides of the issue, right? I've had family members who've lived well into their later years and have had good brain health. But then I've also, in the last few weeks, hi Mona, welcome, been experiencing and seeing the decline in two people that I love so dearly. And so this is near and dear to my heart. And I hope that by covering these issues, you can understand your own brain health, take healthy action steps, right? And remember, whatever you do for your brain, your whole body benefits. So it just improves your life in general. And if you have, loved ones that you've seen decline, or if you yourself are worried, right? You have this hereditary tendency for these illnesses such as Alzheimer's, dementia, or stroke, then now's the time to take action. Today is the day. You can't get it back, right? Whatever we had before is gone. The damage that we've done, right, can't always be reversed. But just like I spoke earlier about your brain reserves, you can take a lot of steps to increase your brain reserves, which will last you well into your years. We talked also about your health span matching your lifespan, meaning that instead of in your later years you live a long life with poor health, maybe even brain health, instead you live a vital, fulfilling, functioning life clear up until, right, you take your last breath. That's my goal, so I hope it's yours as well. So let's get started. So tonight I'm going to talk about nutrition. We're going to cover nutrition in probably 2 to 3 series. It depends on how much information I have. But nutrition is one of the most vital components you can change and add to your brain health regimen. So tonight we're going to talk about sugar and fat. And these are the big lies. These lies have been going on since the 50s. And they really have caused a lot of heart disease, diabetes, and brain illnesses. So I want to talk tonight about how fat was demonized and sugar, of all things, attained sainthood. Thank you. So it began in the 50s when America demanded a solution to heart disease. At the time, LBJ, our president, Lyndon something Johnson, right? Sorry. There I go. I need some help, some brain health. He had a heart attack, and it just scared America so badly that they demanded that something be done for heart disease. So enter Ancel Keys, right? He was a pathologist at the University of Minnesota, and his hypothesis was that dietary fat was at the center of the heart disease epidemic. I want you to know, he cherry-picked what fit his hypothesis, and he omitted data that didn't. And it stuck. For 70 years, his hypothesis stuck, even though it has been many times proven wrong. But America is a slow-moving train. Once the American Heart Association and the U.S. government, remember the pyramid, the food pyramid, it's all wrong, right? And it lasted for 70 years. And in those 70 years, our health declined, and declined tremendously. So at the time, there was other research that found that sugar and simple carbohydrates found in cereals, grains, and flour were contributing to obesity and heart disease. Research decades later would link these factors to brain disease as well. But here's where the kicker comes in. Big money paid for studies that influenced dietary guidelines. One important study that Ancel Keys used was paid for by the sugar industry. Another highly influential study was paid for by Procter & Gamble, demonizing saturated fat and promoting products they manufactured using polyunsaturated vegetable oils, such as shortening, right? Hydrogenated oils. By 1977, the U.S. government adopted the ideas, and the low-fat myth became gospel. Didn't it ever? I don't know about you, but I remember Susan Powder. And what did she say? It's not food that makes you fat, it's fat that makes you fat. She was wrong. But guess what? She was only following what was believed at the time. So soon Americans were eating what manufacturers advertised as healthy, low fat, high sugar, and polyunsaturated fat frankenfoods. I remember I think they were called Eat Wells, and they were cookies. And there was no fat. They were fat-free. They were chocolate, full of sugar, had all kinds of ingredients in it. And I loved them. Believe me, I did. And I ate those rather than healthy foods, right? Frankenfoods. Foods that look like food or sound like food or advertise as food, but they are not. They're full of chemicals. So do you remember Olestra? It came out about that same time. It was a fake fat that wasn't absorbed in your digestive tract, right? It was a dream come true. You could eat all of the fat, this Olestra, that you wanted, but you didn't absorb it into your body and it didn't turn into body fat, right? That was the premise. But there was a downside. Anal seepage, right? Don't we all want some of that? It's true that it didn't stick. It just flew out the other end, right? I don't think that that's healthy. It was funny though, right? It was definitely funny. It was a short-lived product, you can be sure, right? No one wanted that. But this was just the beginning of increased brain diseases, the beginning of the epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes, and, right, heart disease. So remember that your brain, right, this is what we were demonizing fat, low fat, no fat, don't give your kids fat, right? And they need fat to develop. So remember that your brain is almost entirely made of fat, 60% to be exact. And as I'll cover tonight, the kinds of fat you consume impact your brain health and how it functions and how fast we age, right? How susceptible to disease it is. So the types of fat are highly important. Fats actually play a role in your decision-making processes. Again, your brain is made up of entirely fat, 60%. The executive function of your brain, right? That's your prefrontal cortex. That's the one that helps you make decisions. But fat also plays a role in weight control, right? We went no fat, and Americans got fatter. It's our risk for diseases such as cancer and how fast we age. Fat plays a role in all of this. So I want to cover the first of the bad fats, right? Polyunsaturated fats. I want to cover that first. There's a healthy side to polyunsaturated fats, and then it has an evil twin. So let's cover what you don't want so that you know what you do want. The brain loves polyunsaturated fat, but polyunsaturated fats are delicate, and they are highly vulnerable to a process called oxidation, those free radicals. So oxidation occurs when oxygen reacts chemically with certain molecules to create a new damaged zombie molecule that has a super reactive extra electron called a free radical. The extra electron can react with another nearby molecule, transforming it into a second free radical and setting off a never-ending chain reaction. So the action is not under genetic control. They attack nearly all biological molecules, destroying lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, hormones, and enzymes until the radicals are quenched by scavenger molecules called antioxidants. That's why antioxidants are so important. So chronic inflammation or diseases like type 2 diabetes impair our ability to fight the accumulation of oxidative stress. Dr. Mark Hyman says that we rust, right? It's like rusting in metal pipes. The brain is in a tough spot because of this oxygen, right? It accounts for 20 to 25% of the body's oxygen metabolism, and it's highly susceptible to free radicals. So of your entire body, your brain is 3 pounds. We covered this. But it uses 20 to 25% of the body's oxygen, right? It is highly susceptible to free radicals. So the polyunsaturated evil twin, right? Processed oils that have undergone heat and chemical processing. This oil is found in everything. I don't know if you guys saw my post, but I don't have very much processed foods left in my cupboards. It's mostly whole foods. But you can find it in salad dressing. Margarine is polyunsaturated fat, right? Hydrogenated oil. Cereals, potato chips, bread, even ice cream. I was reading that they coat nuts, right, to give them that nice gloss, or how they roast them, in polyunsaturated fat. So when it's eaten, a toxin called aldehyde forms. Elevated levels of aldehydes have been found in Alzheimer-riddled brains. They may influence, these aldehydes, the susceptibility of proteins in the brain to cross-link and clump together, thereby forming the plaques that gunk up the brain. Remember, we talked about Alzheimer's with the beta amyloid plaques and the tangles. One important thing to know is these aldehydes are toxic to the energy-generating mitochondria of the brain and the spinal cord. And remember, your mitochondria is when your cells replicate. You want your mitochondria as healthy as possible, because once the mitochondria is gone, your DNA gets downgraded. That's aging. So, what can you do? Stay away from these bad oils. So stay away from canola, corn, soybean, vegetable, peanut, safflower, sunflower, rapeseed, grapeseed, and rice bran oils. And it's not the original food base that causes the problem. It's the heat and the chemical processing in order to make this an oil. Right? Remember, these polyunsaturated fats are highly susceptible to heat damage. The only way to create these oils is through heat and chemical processing. Compare this, right, to cold-pressed olive oil, right? First of all, the olives are very healthy. We'll talk about that later. And it's squeezed to extract the oil. They don't use chemicals if you buy good olive oil, and always buy good olive oil. And they don't use heat. So then the worst of the fats, trans fats. It's a man-made fat that begins life as a polyunsaturated oil that is pumped up with hydrogen. Now, it's in the news a lot, and so you'll see that a lot of foods say, oh, no trans fats. Well, don't be fooled, okay? On the food labels, right? These come as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil. And food manufacturers love trans fats because it adds a rich, buttery texture to processed foods. And get this, it extends the shelf life. So as a side note, food should spoil naturally. It's not meant to last. Now we have natural ways of preserving food that spoil, such as fermenting, which is good for you, canning, freezing, dehydrating, etc. But preserving with chemicals isn't a good thing for your health. Right? Don't add more chemicals to your body. Remember, we talked last week about liver health. The liver has to process those chemicals and get them out of your body. They're not good for you. They're not meant to stay. They're not nutrients. Your body doesn't turn them into something healthy. That's why you should stay away from artificial coloring, right? Additives and preservatives. Okay, but back to trans fat. Thank you so much. Back to trans fats. They are highly inflammatory, and remember, inflammation is like your brain on fire, right? You don't want this. The rest of your body too, your heart, right, liver, kidneys, all of it can become inflamed. So these trans fats promote insulin resistance and heart disease. There was a recent meta-analysis, which is a study of studies. So they take all the studies and they do a meta-analysis. And it found that consumption of trans fats was associated with a 34% increased risk of all-cause mortality. So let me say that again, a 34% increased risk of all mortality, all-cause mortality. In other words, it's a 34% increase of early death by any cause. That's a lot for one ingredient. One ingredient we don't need, right? Your apple doesn't have trans fat in it. Your egg doesn't have trans fat in it if you don't add it, right? So trans fat has its dagger in just about all causes of disease and death. In terms of your brain, right, because that's what we're talking about, trans fats are particularly damaging. Trans fats can integrate themselves into the membranes of your brain cells and stiffen them like a board, right? They're not pliable. That neuroplasticity, right, that we talk about, they need to be pliable. It makes it difficult for the neurotransmitters to do their job. And your body needs your neurotransmitters. That's what runs you, right? That's what creates all the signals that you need. It also makes it difficult for your brain cells to receive nutrients and fuel. And again, we talked, the brain is the most, right, energy using organ you have. And guess what? When the trans fats makes the cell membranes stiff, right, they can't absorb the nutrients and the fuel. It may be circulating in your blood. It can't get in, right? This isn't good. This isn't good. So even organic expeller pressed canola oil, let's say they used the cold pressed, right, like olives, is as much as 5% trans fat. You're still getting it. And canola oil, whether they use the good one or not, and remember the cheaper foods would not use the better brands, are 5% trans fat. So you're still getting too much. You don't need any, none. It absolutely, like sugar, does not need to be in your diet. So stick with extra virgin olive oil and make sure you get the good kind, because sometimes, right, they cut it. They weaken it with other cheaper oils in order to bring the cost down. Make sure you buy the good stuff. You'll think you're doing it for your heart health or your brain health. And it's got canola oil or sunflower oil or something in it, and you're right back to where you started. So now, right, let's talk about, let's talk about the good polyunsaturated fats, omega-3 and omega-6, which are considered essential because our bodies need them and we can't produce them. We get them only from food. So it is known, right, that we are unbalanced in our omega-3 and omega-6s. We're highly omega-6 fed and low omega-3s. So there are two really important omega-3s, DHA and EPA. And these are the good fats found in fish, such as wild salmon, mackerel, and sardines, found in krill and certain algae. Omega-3s are also found in smaller quantities in grass-fed beef and pasture-raised eggs, not feedlot, right? They're under stress. I don't know if you've ever seen a feedlot or those chicken houses where they die all the time, right? They're all cramped up. They don't get fresh air. They don't get sunlight. Right? They're under a lot of stress. And what does stress cause? A lot of cortisol and adrenaline and other stress-induced hormones. You don't want that in your meat supply. If you've ever seen cows just grazing out in the field, right, they're happy. You want a happy cow. If you're going to eat beef, make sure it's a good one. So EPA is a whole body anti-inflammatory agent, and DHA is the most important and abundant structural component of healthy brain cells. You need DHA. I don't know if you've seen, but in infant formula, they add DHA. Why? Because you need it for a brain. And what is a baby trying to do? Right? Its brain is one of its fastest growing organs. Another form of omega-3 is found in plants. And I'm going to get all of these wrong, so I even Googled it how to say them. So if I don't get it right, and you know, don't let me know. It's called alpha-linoleic acid, ALA for short. ALA needs to be converted to EPA and DHA to be utilized by our cells. Some people can convert it very efficiently, others cannot. But it's still right in your plants and can be converted to those two highly needed essential amino acids. Thank you. So omega-6s are essential, but, right, as I said before, the standard American diet, SAD for short, now includes far too many omega-6s, and most of them come in the form of these polyunsaturated oils, right? They're so predominant in all of our food, unless you grow your own, or buy the products you need to make something. Let's say that you're, I don't know, making a meatloaf, right? You buy the meat, you buy the tomatoes, you buy the onions, right? Or you can buy a prepackaged frozen meatloaf and imagine that it would have all these hydrogenated polyunsaturated oils in it, plus a lot of preservatives and a lot of flavorings, right, that you don't need. So the American diet is too high in omega-6s, and not from the good sources. It's all from these oils. So now, we also get them in grain and seed oils. So there's some grain oils as well. Probably corn, I guess, would probably be one of the grains. Monounsaturated fats. This is what you do want, right? Remember I told you we'll cover what we don't want in order so that we know what we do want. So monounsaturated fats are your brain's best friend. Your brain is rich in monounsaturated fats. And common food sources, right, are all good for you. Avocados, avocado oil, macadamia nuts, and the fat content of wild salmon and grass-fed beef. But perhaps the most famous source and easiest to get is extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is a monounsaturated fat. You almost can't get too much of it. So an important benefit of adding more healthy, good fats to your diet, which include eggs, fatty fish, avocado, EVOO, right, Rachel Ray, EVOO, is that fats facilitate the absorption of critical fat-soluble nutrients, such as vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, and K, as well as important carotenoids like beta-carotene. So I got that one. So know this, certain nutrients in your vegetables are not absorbed unless in the presence of fat. Therefore, your salads and vegetables should always include a healthy fat source. I say EVOO, right? Include it. And now on to sugar, the Darth Vader of the nutritional world. And Darth Vader's Death Star is processed food manufacturers who create weapons of mass nutritional destruction. And we pay them to destroy our health. Go figure. Right? Sugar is the Darth Vader of our nutritional world. It is. And we pay these food manufacturers to create these weapons. We don't need to, right? We can choose better. So sugar by any other name. Anti-obesity researcher and crusader Robert Lustig has identified 56 unique terms food manufacturers use to disguise sugar. They don't even want you to know it's in there. It makes it almost impossible for an average human to spot where they've added the sugar. There are 56 unique terms for sugar, but only in processed foods, right? The apple doesn't have any of the 56, right? It's an apple. An orange doesn't have it. Your potatoes don't have it, right? Eat healthy foods. Create your own. Stay away from these processed foods. They hide stuff in there. So along with added sugar, the average American also consumes grains like wheat, corn, and rice, tubers like potatoes, modern sweet fruits, which are all cultivated for maximum yield of starch and sugar. So know that what our ancestors ate, or even 100 years ago, has changed greatly, right? They are all now cultivated for maximum yield of starch and sugar. And why would we do that? Why would we cultivate them for maximum sugar and starch? Because we like to eat them, right? Have you ever bought an orange? And my favorites are either halos or little cuties. And then been really disappointed because it wasn't sweet enough, right? I know I have. I get one and it's not sweet and I feel like I got ripped off, right? They grow fruit, they grow vegetables, they grow everything. They actually have scientists who manufacture or produce these chemicals in your foods that make you highly addictive to the taste, right? We want our taste to be heightened. Even artificial sugars will trick you into thinking, right, that a regular piece of fruit isn't sweet enough. It hijacks your sweet taste buds. So although potatoes and other starchy vegetables don't taste like sugar, they are a simple chain of glucose. Now for some they're okay, but for like me, where I'm watching my sugar, I have to stay away from potatoes. And I'll go into this in a little bit, how you can do that and never be deprived, right? If any of you guys have seen any of my other videos, you know I love French fries. It's one of my favorite foods, and it's hard for me to give up potatoes. So our ancestors did eat potatoes and corn. They did. They absolutely did. But unlike modern man, who only consumes a very meager 15 grams of fiber per day, our ancestors ate roughly 150 grams a day. That's a huge increase. What a whopping difference. And here's why it matters. Fiber helps control blood sugar levels. Soluble fiber can slow the absorption of sugar. Sorry, tongue-tied. The absorption of sugar. High fiber foods tend to be more filling. They absolutely are. Fiber can reduce blood pressure and inflammation. Remember, we don't want our body on fire. And it keeps your bowels healthy. And remember, we talked about that. It's important. It's very important, our gut health. So most of us don't eat enough. And we should be eating our fiber, not always relying on a supplement such as Metamucil. Although if you have to, use that, but also include natural, whole, fibrous foods, vegetables. So if you're diabetic, which increases your risk for a host of diseases, heart disease, brain disease, kidneys and eye diseases, you know that many foods raise your blood sugar, and starchy vegetables are high on the list. So most of us who have blood sugar issues restrict or eliminate these foods completely. And guess what? You can survive without French fries. I have. So why it matters. So sugar is sticky once it gets in your body. It's sticky on your fingers, it's sticky in your blood. Glycation happens when a glucose molecule bonds to a nearby protein or the surface of a cell, thereby causing damage, right? We are not meant to be coated in sugar from the inside nor the outside. This is why your blood sugar levels are so important. How much sugar that you have in your bloodstream that damages your cells, right? So do you know your own blood sugar levels? Do you get, right, your fasting blood sugar tested, and do you get your A1C tested? So how much sugar do you have floating around in your bloodstream, right, damaging your cells? Even a little bit is too much. And since sugar is in the bloodstream, it affects every part of your body fed by your bloodstream. Can't think of one body part not affected, can you? Now, when it's in healthy balance, it's used for fuel. But what you can't use floats around, right? It's not what you want, because then your body has to clear it. So let's talk about fructose, right? We've all heard in the news, high fructose corn syrup. Well, fructose, which comes naturally in fruit, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it is processed differently than glucose. So yes, the high fructose corn syrup studies, right, paid for by the manufacturers of high fructose corn syrup will tell you that fructose and glucose are both natural, and they're the same, but they are not. It's important how they're processed differently. So fructose bypasses your bloodstream and goes straight to your liver, right? Liver health is huge. It acts differently. It doesn't initially elevate your blood sugar and doesn't cause a rise in insulin at first. So food companies, right, they want to make money, and we buy their stuff. So, we are in a symbiotic relationship with them. So it's up to you to know. It's up to you to know, because if you'll buy it, they'll sell it. So food companies exploit this fact to your demise, because once in the liver, fructose induces lipogenesis, which is literally fat creation. So after the fructose fills your liver to its capacity with fat, it spills over into your bloodstream as triglycerides. That's why they measure your triglyceride level, because remember, triglycerides can affect your heart health. It also affects your brain health. So lipogenesis, the fat production, right? Yes, I agree. The fat production due to fructose consumption. This is interesting, so pay attention. Lipogenesis due to fructose consumption can dump more fat into your bloodstream than even the highest fat-containing meal. Fructose eventually causes inflammation in the liver, impairing the liver's ability to address the glucose in the blood. Remember, that's the sweeper, the cleaner. So fructose and sugar consumption, in general, are a major contributor to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, right? So if it's alcohol related, sometimes it turns into a cirrhosis, right? But cirrhosis can be caused by non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So remember last week I showed that a healthy brain is dependent on a healthy liver. So what is fatty liver disease? You may know that fatty liver in ducks or geese is called foie gras, right? And it's a delicacy to some. Never had it, probably never will. So guess how they make it? They force feed the animal, right, the duck or the geese, an astronomical amount of grain, something they would never eat. They force feed them. Understand that, because they wouldn't do it. It's usually corn, and they feed them until the animals' livers swell, right? Causing all kinds of health issues for the animal, but also pain. They can't breathe, they can't eat other food, right? It swells. It swells with fat. And the liver itself becomes so fat, it turns into an almost butter consistency. Right? That's not healthy. It's not the way your liver is supposed to be. But humans are creating this almost same condition for themselves with the overconsumption of sugar and other simple carbohydrates. So fatty liver has been associated with cognitive deficits, meaning our brains aren't working well. In my studies, fatty liver disease is believed to be a major contributing factor in developing brain diseases such as dementia or Alzheimer's, right? So something I want to prevent. I can't even tell you after the couple of weeks that we've been through how important this is. I hope what I'm sharing with you makes an impact for you as it has for me. So while 70 to 80% of obese people have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, thank you, you can be regular weight and also develop the disease. 15 to 20% of people with this disease are not obese, and that's because they consume a high portion of their diet in sugar and simple carbs, right? And remember, processed foods are almost always simple carbs. They may add some type of fiber to fool you that it's high fiber, but it's not. It's highly processed. Sugar also affects your gut health, right? And I covered this last week also. An unhealthy gut contributes to inflammation, mostly due to leaky gut, right? We don't want that stuff leaking out. Research has noted that repeated sugars of blood sugar, such as what is common in type 2 diabetes, can both initiate and accelerate plaque accumulation in the brain. So remember from these previous sessions, Alzheimer's brains are clogged with beta amyloid plaque. And surges of blood sugar, which is common in type 2 diabetes, can initiate it, meaning it starts it, and accelerate it. So they've concluded that plaques in your hippocampus are likely modulated by blood glucose levels, which means this is the major factor in what's creating, right, or accelerating these plaques. Blood sugar, right? Blood glucose levels. So now the good news. Again, what you don't want, let's move into what we do want. And I want to say, yep, Little Debbie, she's ruined so much health. And those were some of my favorites. And remember, Zach said he grew up on Little Debbie's, so isn't that scary? So the good news, right? It's great news to me, is that although high concentrations of fructose from processed foods have been proven to cause all kinds of health issues, small amounts of fructose consumed in whole, fresh fruit are healthy for you. So this is in part, right, to the fibrous matrix that the sugars are bound in, right? Fruit is fibrous, right? There's water and other phytonutrients. And here's a big one. Whole fruit consumption is self-limiting because the fiber makes it more filling. For example, it would be quite difficult to eat 5 apples, but it's a breeze to drink the sugar contained in 5 apples in juice, in apple juice, right? But you can't eat the 5 apples. So stick with whole fruit. Fruits, when eaten in moderation and with blood sugar levels in control, contain various important nutrients. And luckily, the best fruits are the low-sugar fruits. They're among the most concentrated sources of these nutrients. So think coconut, avocado, olives, and cacao, which is not a fruit, but dark chocolate, and this is the really dark chocolate, has a variety of brain benefits and is included in the Genius Food, right, protocol. So dark chocolate, if you've switched to dark, really dark chocolate, 80-90% cacao, a little tiny bit goes a long way, 1 square, right? You think the mini candy bars, I can eat a lot of Snickers mini candy bars. but I really can only eat 1 or 2 small squares of dark chocolate. It goes that far, but it has a lot of brain health benefits. So berries are great because they're low in fructose and high in antioxidants. Remember, eat the rainbow. And the more bright and vibrant the colors are, the more antioxidants and other nutrients they contain. So remember the free radicals that we discussed earlier due to the bad oils. Berries are great because they're high in antioxidants. I know you're trying cacao, Mona. Good for you. You can't eat very much, right? Little goes a long way. So, what can we take away from tonight? We'll talk more about nutrition, as nutrition is vitally important. Food is medicine when done healthy and right. But tonight, 2 of the biggest components are sugar and bad oil, right? The big lie, 70 years it has taken us to really turn this around. So eliminate both sugar and bad oils from your diet. If you are in good health already, consider the 80-20 rule. Remember, I told you you can do this. Consider the 80-20 rule if you're already in good health. So 80% of the time, follow a strict whole foods, low sugar, no processed food diet, right? Concentrate on high quality, highly nutritious food. Allow yourself 20% of the time to indulge in such occasions, special occasions, date nights, right? Eating out, socializing with friends. So 80-20, 8 out of 10 days, right? Or 8 out of 10 meals, or however you do the 80-20 rule, is whole, nutritious, healthy foods. 20% of the time, right, you can indulge in other things. But if you're like me and you already have health issues, my main one at this time, right, is obesity and being diabetic, then I have to follow the 98-2% rule. So 98% of the time, I need to follow strict nutrition. My health depends on it. And I have the issues, right, that are highly damaging to my brain. So my health depends on it. So this would be more like out of 100 days, 2 I can designate to indulge in, such as social events, date nights, or whatever. So for the entire year, this looks like 5 days a year, right? I have to plan. And I want you to know you can eat out. You can figure it out. There's a lot of salads. Watch what you put in them. A lot of vegetables, right? Eat meat, right? Good meat. Not deep fried with a lot of coating, but steamed or grilled, something, right, sauteed. You can do it. You know what the special occasions are, right? Plan it. Which ones are you going to indulge in? If there's a wedding coming up, those of you who know me know I like wedding cake icing if it's buttercream icing. Not the healthiest, right? So I can't go to too many weddings and have buttercream. 2%. 2% of the time I can indulge. The 98%, right, I follow a good diet. My brain health depends on it. So it's completely doable. I want you to know that, right? And for me, it's not forever. Shouldn't be for you either, right? You can move into the 80-20 class as well by getting your health in order. But my health has vastly improved over the last 18 months, and I stick to this most of the time. Right? And my health has improved. My numbers are better. Yes, I know, Mona, buttercream. Forget the cake. That makes me laugh. It's doable, right? It's doable. My health has improved. My numbers have all improved. My medications, right, are being eliminated as I get healthier and healthier. So it's doable. And I want you to know I continue to make progress, right? Even with setbacks such as knee issues, it's doable. And then I have another reason for committing to my health. It's staring me right in the face, right? On the one hand, I have a beloved aunt who recently passed away, who lived well into her years. And she was relatively healthy. She had lupus, but lived a long life with it. She was able to live at home independently, right? And until just recently, she had a sharp mind. And when I say just recently, I really mean in the last couple of months. You could call her and still talk to her. She remembered who you were. She remembered your family. She remembered what was going on the last time she talked to you, even if she hadn't talked to you in well over a year. Again, she was relatively independent. Her body became more frail with years, but she was able to live this life the way she wanted to. She went out on her terms, right? She went out on her terms. Sharp mind, wonderful woman, strong, very strong, and lived a full life with many experiences. And then on the other hand, and closer to home, his family members with brain decline. And the loss of their conversation is heartbreaking. If you've ever missed, right, the stories, having a real conversation with somebody you love so much and somebody you admired, who taught you so much as you were growing up and raising your own family. The confusion, their confusion is difficult to watch. And then the worst, making decisions such as taking away their independence is indescribably gut-wrenching. And I want you to know that I will work with my family to move through these very challenging times. But it is absolutely planted in me a newfound commitment to my own health. And I share this story with you, right? That brings me to tears because I want you to have the same commitment for you. Their health was crying out decades ago, but we couldn't know until the symptoms appeared, and there is no reversing them. They only continue to decline, to degenerate. And again, I have, right, one instance on one hand, someone who chose how to live her life to the very end, and on the other, having to make decisions for someone I love. Thank you. Right? Both of them. I love them both. They're so dear to me. And watching this, and it has been accelerating, and watching the decline will never leave your mind. It's on your mind every day, most of the day. Right? I don't want this for you. I don't want this for my children. And that's why I'm taking action. That's why I started this 12-week program. And I hope you enjoy it, follow it, and make some changes. Even if you don't do it all, follow the 80% rule, right? Out of the 10 things I offer, pick up 8, right? Pick up the ones you can do. Any change will make a difference. Any change will make a difference. So I hope that by sharing this, right, it brings you a newfound commitment to your own health. And so tonight, I'd like to close with this. Love yourself well. Love yourself well. Till next week, bye-bye.